What has been the impact of the global financial crisis on the asset servicing business in Asia?
The global financial crisis has been one of the largest events in recent history. The impact has been widespread, and everyone has been affected in one way or another. It is a rude awakening to the investors, market participants, and service providers. I think the largest and the biggest change has been a change in investors' attitude, crystallizing their attitude towards risk and risk mitigating factors. A fair degree of mistrust and uncertainty was introduced into the capital markets. We find that investors are returning to the risk-return fundamentals theory, focusing on counterparty, market, and business risk. Now, the impact to us as service provider is that the sales cycle becomes very long because investors now increase their due diligence process when they look for a service provider. Mm-hmm. Another change that or impact to the global custodian bank is the expectation from investors to provide them with much more granular, detailed, timely, and effective data to provide them with more insights into their portfolios and the associated risks, and to satisfy both their increasing internal and external regulatory reporting needs. Investors have been rudely awakened to the fact that they may not be best positioned to meet the current and future operational and reporting requirements. So they are now looking for their service providers like ourselves to manage their increasingly complex information needs. Now, given that global custodian banks are basically the repository to a lot of different data, the role of a custodian bank, I feel, has evolved from a pure back office function to that of a partner.
What challenges does the global custody and asset servicing industry in Asia face in the midterm?
You know, I find Asia an extremely interesting region, in that it is very highly fragmented. The region is made up of a series of heterogeneous countries with very different operating environment, different taxation, different regulatory rules, different accounting rules. And these countries are also in different stages of development, with many countries still largely domestic in nature from an asset allocation perspective. I think global custodian banks have been very successful in catering to the needs of these investors when they start investing overseas. The challenge is to cater to investors whose investment allocations are still primarily domestic, with local accounting rules and regulatory reporting and local language support. Because these are all pretty important requirements for our customers, and I find that global custodian banks have yet to be able to fully meet with these sort of requirements. So there is a need for the global custodian bank to tailor-make our global offering to meet the domestic client needs and requirements. And equally important, I find, is to provide training and to ensure these investors' awareness on global best practices, to the domestic investors, because quite often these investors expect the local requirements or practices to be also the same, when it comes to global investment. But I think you and I know that it's not always the case. So to ensure the long-term success of the service providers, I think continuous education to domestic investors is critical. I would say that after the financial crisis, customers more than ever, these investors are looking for partners that satisfy the following criteria. One, service providers are very committed to the industry, to the business. And secondly, service providers with very strong financial position. Thirdly, they have a very robust risk management process. And finally, providers who are able to adapt very quickly to local requirements and increasingly complex requirements from customers. I feel that providers with this criteria would continue to be successful in Asia Pacific.